My name is Brad Harris. We're HBRV Ranch. We've been established since about 1898, and we're 5 generations. We've been here in West Texas and southeastern New Mexico now, and we are excited to be a part of agriculture. Agriculture is a very important part of our lifestyle and our family. We have 8 children. Our oldest is 23 and our youngest is 3 years old. We tie strongly back to the land, knowing how important it is that we create an environment in which our youth can come back and have a position in agriculture and also pursue the lifestyle that we've had the opportunity to enjoy and that our forefathers had the opportunity to enjoy. We raise registered Angus cattle. We get our seed stock through Diamond Dot out of Montana. We appreciate all of the opportunities that we have with regard to the agricultural industry and helping supply seed stock and helping people be profitable in a harsh environment that we now face in agriculture. I believe that the number one goal on the ranch, a lot of people can talk about profitability, which it is an important part, but there's something that's more important than profitability. It's sustainability. And to me, the sustainability comes with a culture. And so our number one goal is to produce a culture and an environment in which there's a place of learning, a place of industry in which we create in environments where things have to change. We're able to be adaptable. And our goal is to be able to bring the next generation on and open a door for them to participate with us and to find their niche in the midst of a growing industry. One of the things that we do and I'll use the word culture. In our culture, what we do is we take our kids and we give them the opportunity to be a part of every aspect of agriculture that we're involved in, from the understanding of animal husbandry to the understanding of farming activities, in which we have irrigated farmland and we manage crops, to the understanding of marketing and cultivating relationships. So our older children have all gone on to West Texas A&M to pursue agricultural degrees and learn things from business to marketing to communications. So we're working in that way. We also reach out and we're actively involved in trying to help small schools develop their programs, their ag programs, in particular Wildorado Cattle Company and Wildorado, Texas, where we are very glad to be a part of a budding community there that's trying to develop an ag industry or culture where where they're cultivating kids to be able to come back to agriculture and have a part in it, and it looks different in this day and age, and that's okay, but we're wanting to sustain that. For me personally, if I back up to 3 generations, all of this was open range, and so what my granddad would have had to do is to help develop and get good permanent fences in. What my dad would have had to do is to go in and to turn land that was not profitable. Would have to figure out how to manage grazing and then how to develop farmland and things of that order. And then whenever I would come in, there were things to marketing and expanding on different crops and to getting involved in the seed stock operation. And so in every generation we see a progression of things. And so what we're hoping is that we cultivate an environment of learning, an environment of adaptation to where that we can be sustained in agriculture and the generations to come can as well. We have to be really careful in agriculture not to allow just the industry itself or the marketing of livestock to be the thing that totally influences a breeding program. And so from a seed stock operation, I can say that our environment here in which we grow and raise our market calves and cattle and things looks different than it does in the Midwest or even East, because we're always short of rainfall, and our livestock have to produce more on less. And so what we strive to do is we strive to grow a seed stock operation where the cattle have to earn their, so to speak, earn their living. And they have to go out and do their work, and they have to be able to do that year in and year out and what would work in a feed yard operation or in an operation where cattle were getting, in small paddocks where they had, ample amount of green grass. These cattle that we have, they're going to have to go and travel out. The waters are a mile away from each other to 2 miles. And so we have to cultivate seed stock that will be able to go out and travel the distances and then still be able to perform in the feed yard and perform on in other, basically that will be high quality feed and food back to the consumer. And so that's one of the things that I think is very important, and that's one of the things that points to success, is that we have to have cattle that are adaptable to the environment that they're in. And so that's what we're trying to do, is cultivate cattle that can flourish in arid and dry climates and then not give up pounds of gain in the feed yards. The Riomax product is something that I've looked at for several years, but it obviously came, it's not a contemporary feed that everybody is traditionally accustomed to. It's the indirect action that causes it to not fit into our scope of understanding. When we're typically used to the idea of balancing a ration, we know how much protein it takes to get the ration balanced. But when we're bypassing that and we're feeding the microbes and things in their rumen, then we're actually being more efficient in the way that we're causing our cattle to function. So what happened with us is the cost of a feed drastically went up. Our inputs went up, and so whereas we were buying cattle feed, cattle cake, at about $180 a ton, to this year you can contract it at about $550 a ton. Where in the past we would feed supplemental feed, up to 35 pounds a week, and trying to maintain body condition and get breed back on cattle, and then we're still buying mineral and supplement on the side. Then Riomax is a whole product, and so what it actually brought to the table is the opportunity to cut the expense of our supplemental feed and really diminish it to the point that it wasn't. It's really not involved except in bad environment like a snowstorm or something that comes in, and then we go in and we'll supplement on the side. But we're able to just switch and be able to feed the Riomax tubs and take care of most all of their supplemental needs, especially through the winter. And then when we get started calving and things of that order, then we'll put a little extra because we need them to milk good and get them to breed back. But it kind of changed the view of body condition and the things that we viewed necessary, from traditional means to get a cow bred back, especially after a cow has had her first calf and then we're trying to breed her back. This last year on Riomax, we were able to get a 95% breed up, which is not unheard of to wind up with a 75 to 80% breed up on those kind of cattle, especially in the drought conditions. And so we used the Riomax and we did that with minimal, other inputs and achieved a 95% breed up. So we're sold on it. It worked for us as far as the breed up goes. We've used Riomax on weaning calves, and we've seen where we're in a natural program where we're certified natural in all aspects of it. And whenever we have to doctor a calf, we lose them from those programs, and those value added programs can be $350 to $400, maybe even more per animal that we lose if we have to doctor them and medicate them. So it's very important to keep the health on these cattle, to keep them in the programs, and we've seen that help us as well. I'll give you an example. Is like for this year, we started weaning cattle, and as we went through the first 2 months of weaning, having them on Riomax, we pull less than 1%. I mean, it's a very small fraction is what we pull and medicate, and we understand that's a high stress environment that they're in whenever that's happening. There was a point to where we had a set of cattle in between getting another shipment of Riomax that we were out for about a 2-week period. And we weaned a set during that time, and that set of cattle, we actually had to doctor 15% of those cattle during that time. Once the Riomax got back in, those cattle continued to straighten back out, and we had the cattle, eating from a bunk and on good feed, and that was the only difference on that. We did have a cold snap But the cold snap only affected those cattle that were there. The other ones that had been on it, and we still had it out too, we didn't have any trouble really with them. So we are seeing a huge difference with regard to health wise. And when you're losing a calf from an all natural program, and now they're going into a conventional program, the issue, people may throw up the idea, well, you know, all natural and conventional, if you do conventional, you get better rate of gain and you do all this. But when you're set up to be all natural and you're not set up to be conventional, you're not doing the things to maximize conventional gains. So you're not implanting and you're not doing all of those other things that we're working on another, you know, basis to do in the natural program. So there's a lot of advantage to health, and because we know that when we doctor cattle, it takes them a long time to reestablish their bacteria and their rumen and to establish their productivity. And it's not just instantaneously that you give them a shot, now they're well and they're good to go. They go off feed for several days, and so we're losing gain, we're losing opportunity, you know, for actually for the end cell. And so there are things that are calculatable, and one of them is you can actually look and calculate the breed up that you wind up with your cows. You can see that you have more cows that are bred. You can actually look and see that your doctoring and your health situations are actually improved, and you're not going backwards on that. And you can actually look and see what your feed costs are and how much you're putting in, or you were putting into your cattle to keep them at a certain body condition. And now with this feed that you're able to do it at a considerably less cost. So in the past, when we were having to supplement at a higher level, you know, up to 35 pounds a week of 20% breeder cube or 25% breeder cube, we've found that the cattle in large pastures would be, you know, pretty much waiting for you to show up. And whenever you come through the gates, you know, those cattle come from running 5 miles away, coming straight to you, leaving their babies on the ground and running their whole way over. And as you put the feed out, you know, you're also, as much as you're trying to supply some energy to those cattle, you're also now dealing with the situation that those cows have left their babies alone, and those cattle have expended a lot of energy coming to your feed wagon. And so we're supplying, you know, feed. But the other problem we had is keeping the cattle spread out when we were doing that. And so with Riomax, because we don't come in and supplement all the time, we can keep these cattle spread out across the pasture in different and smaller groups. And then when we do have to supplement in a snow or something, we come and we just feed those small groups at a time, and we don't bring them all together, and we try to keep them spread out over the ranch. And so that was a big benefit. But when you're feeding large amounts of cake or something of that order, you have to be very careful, because you've got to make sure everybody gets their supplement. And so in doing that, especially on an every other day basis, all those cattle, they all want to congregate together, which means that they're not spending time out grazing. They're spending more time looking for the feed wagon than they are doing their work. And so Riomax helps us keep them out in the pasture, doing their work, not looking for the feed wagon. The price of this tub, you know, was considerably more than what other tubs were. And so what really threw me for the loop was the idea that I wasn't going to have to supplement along beside this, that it was actually going to do what they said. And yeah, it was. It wasn't until I actually fed it for a year on 100 head of cows that we, when we got the results back, and we wound up with a 95% breed up on those cows, and we didn't supplement them with anything else, and they ran in, you know, there was 100 head of cows, and they ran over a 6-section pasture, and the waters are a mile apart, and it's not super heavy watered, but they had to travel and do their work. When I got the results back from that, and I was able to compare that with the other 400 head of cows that we manage otherwise, I realized we had a whole lot less management in those cows, and we had the results that we wanted. And so then that began the process of changing my mind. Instead of looking at it on a price per tub, I looked at it on a price per head. And whenever I started managing it on a price per head, realizing, you know, in a real world scenario, you know, we were doing about, I want to say 25, you know, basically a quarter of a pound a day is what our consumption was. And then on the other tubs that we were feeding, they could be anywhere from 3/4 to 1.5 pounds. And so our cost was considerably more, and we did have to supplement, and we did have to put mineral out as well. So, that began the process of changing it and helped me understand the price. And I think that that's the biggest thing for most ranchers is we don't want to throw our money away. And if we have to buy these tubs, we know that they're good, we know the feed's good, but if we're having to do that and then supplement at the same level to get the results that we previously were, then it's not cost effective. But what we found is we were able to do this, like they said, and that there is a guarantee on a third pound. If it exceeds that, over a period of time, then there's a reimbursement. And I mean, that's a big point to a rancher that's, running 1,000 head of cows. I mean, that could cost Riomax a lot of money if they weren't right. As a rancher, I mean, one of the things that I can really appreciate is the fact that in our industry, we face a lot of marketing, and there's a lot of marketing tools that are designed to sell us a bill of goods, but not really show up to the table whenever things really count. And to actually come up with a product that actually performs and does what it says it'll do, it does a lot of things that gives us a lot of peace of mind, and also knowing that we can put these tubs out, 1 to 50 head of cattle, it lessens the amount of management that's necessary. So we don't have to have as many people just going around looking to see what's going on with the cows, as much as we can work on other projects that we couldn't have worked on otherwise and get things in order for the spring and the summer and things like that. When we figured the Riomax, what we figured is that our input cost just on supplemental cost, with Riomax we were spending around $18 to $20 a head a month is where we were at. And whereas when we were feeding at from January, February, March, and those 3 months, we were feeding up to, $35 a head a month, and trying to keep them supplemented, and even more depending on the price of our, of our commodity or what we were having to feed. So there was a big difference in what our input cost was. Whenever you're supplementing, you're having to do it on an every other day basis, 3 to 4 times a week. And so your fuel and everything else that goes into that was considerable, amount of time. And then the time you have to wait and do that, it takes up your days. And then, so like I said, there was no opportunity to work on, other projects that need to be done around the ranch and farming operation. At this point, being in this for going on 2 years now, and we've been in a constant drought for now almost 3 years, I'm pretty confident in saying we're definitely seeing results, and we feel like that what we're getting is profitable, and we're getting all the things that we need to say that we feel like that this product is well worth the investment, and we're seeing money return from using it instead of just money going out. You've got to be critical of what you're using and what you're doing. It can't be just how it feels good or it's convenient or you just love the person you're buying stuff from. At the end of the day, it's got to perform, and we all got to be accountable to one another. Agriculture, we have to be accountable to each other and say, hey, this is working or not working, and why it's not just being biased. We have to find how to make things work. And Riomax is one of those things that have moved up and they've proven their way. And so, I just challenge you to be critical of your operation. Look at it, with real eyes, real numbers. And don't just look at it yourself. Have somebody else look at it, and look at it together. And as you do that, you'll find that there are things that you can improve on. And Riomax was something that helped us improve.